The federal Constitution created a form of national governance that Americans chose not to create during the American Revolution. During, during their struggle against Britain, Americans chose to form a loose confederation of independent and sovereign states under a loose and emasculated and dependent central government. And they spelled this out in America's first constitution, the Articles of Confederation, ratified in 1781 during the war. So why did they so quickly after the war reject this model of government that they chose during the revolution and adopted instead the federal constitution? Okay, why did they, if we anachronistically refer to the model of government that they enacted during the revolution with the first constitution, if we anachronistically call that an anti-federalist model, then why did they immediately, just a few years after the war, make a 180-degree turn and reject that model in favor of the second constitution, the federal constitution? Um, so during the Revolutionary era, American settlers clashed with Parliament because they upheld the right of each colony to govern itself. Okay? And they reaffirmed this belief in 1776. And an examination of that period from 1776 to 1781 makes it evidently clear that Americans during that period and during the period leading up to the revolution did not expect or want a central government to govern them. And when they formed the United States in 1776, they did not expect or want this United States government to govern them in their states. The revolutionists had envisioned 13 sovereign states, not a nation state. And they did not want a common national government to govern them. They left the governing to the local and state governments. However, by 1787, increasing numbers of Americans had elevated their expectations of what the common government should do for them. And Shays' Rebellion, which took place in 1786 in Massachusetts, illustrates this evolution, this elevation of Americans' expectations of what role the national government should play in their local affairs. So this rebellion in Massachusetts strengthened Federalists in Massachusetts, but not because the rebellion demonstrated to local people in Massachusetts that their state needed a strong central government to suppress a local rebellion for them. Okay? After all, I mean, we know this because Massachusetts did suppress Shays' Rebellion decisively on its own without any help from the United States government. Okay? The citizens and authorities of Massachusetts asked the US government for assistance, not because their state was impotent and incapable of confronting Shays' rebels, but because after the US government had worked with local populations and helped out local populations throughout the long years of the Revolutionary War, locals had become habituated, had come to expect such assistance from the national government. And this is why when a military or diplomatic problem materialized somewhere, for example, Shays' Rebellion in Western Massachusetts, or Indian violence on one of the Western frontiers, or Spain hindering American commerce on the Mississippi, then when these things happened, local populations and local governments in these locales, by this point, after the Revolutionary War, expected a more helpful central government than they had expected back in 1776, when they rejected central governance by Britain. or in 1754 when Americans rejected the Albany Plan for some sort of central governance. And this issue shines a light on the elevated expectations that Americans developed during the Revolutionary War of what the government, the national government, the central government should do for us locally. This issue shines a light on a debate among historians about when it was that Americans developed a sense of nationhood, so a common identity and a familial bond and a mutual responsibility to support and come to the aid of fellow Americans. One camp sees this kind of American identity and national bond forming well before the revolution and producing the revolution. Whereas the other camp holds that Americans developed a sense of nationhood only during the war. Okay, that Americans' sense of nationhood was a product of the harsh experiences of war rather than the cause for the war. According to this camp of historians, the second group, common suffering, common fighting, common dying, and common victory produced produced a national identity and a national bond that were not there back in 1776. And even so, one should not exaggerate how quickly and how thoroughly this new national identity and national project crowded out the original states' rights spirit of the 1776 revolution. Because the new constitution, the federal constitution, still faced stiff resistance among broad swaths of the population in 1787 and 88. Okay. So much as you can see how close the ratification contest was in the fact that Federalists were compelled to acquiesce to a number of anti-Federalist demands to amend the Constitution. Thanks.